In this lesson, we will learn about Italian interrogative adjectives and pronouns. In simple terms, Italian question words. These are words like who, what, which, and how many. We'll focus on 4 common interrogative words in Italian: chi, che cosa, or cosa, quale, and quanto. By the end of the lesson, you'll know how to use these words in questions, and we'll also practice forming yes, no questions in Italian. Let's get started. Andiamo. Yes, no questions in Italian. Domande sì, no. First, how do we ask a yes, no question in Italian? In English, yes, no questions often require changing the word order or adding a helping verb. For example, do you speak Italian? With do, or are you a student? The verb before the subject. In Italian, you don't need an extra word like do or to swap the order. You use the same word order as a statement and simply change your intonation, raise your voice at the end. It also depends a little bit on the region, how much you raise your voice. In Milano, we'll say, for example, ti piace? Instead of ti piace? Ti piace? Or you can use a question mark in writing to signal that it's a question. For example, the statement tu parli inglese means you speak English. To turn this into a question, you can say tu parli inglese, which means do you speak English? With a rising tone at the end. Notice that the words are the same and in the same order. The only difference is your intonation and the question mark in writing. No do or does, and no rearranging of the subject and the verb is needed in Italian. Another example, Marco è stanco, which means Marco is tired. To ask it as a yes-no question, you would say Marco è stanco? Is Marco tired? With a rising intonation. Yes, it's that simple. Often context and tone tell you it's a question. In writing, just add the question mark. Note, Italian speakers sometimes add a tag at the end of a statement to turn it into a question, like vero, right? Or no, no, or non è vero, isn't it true? For example, tu sei americano, vero? It means you're American, right? This is optional. You can always just use intonation alone for yes-no questions. Now that we know how to form simple questions with yes-no answers, let's move on to open questions. The ones that use question words to ask who, what, which, how much, and so on. In Italian, such interrogative words are called interrogativi. They usually come at the beginning of the question, just like question words in English. The main Italian interrogative words we will cover today are chi, who, to ask about a person, che cosa, or simply cosa, what, to ask about a thing or action, quale, which one, asks to specify or choose in the singular, quanto, with variations quanta, quanti, quante, how much, how many, asks about quantity or amount, and these words allow you to ask for specific information. In Italian, as in English, they are placed at the beginning of the question. Now we will look at each of these question words in detail, with examples. First one, chi, who. Use chi to ask about people. For example, who someone is or who is doing something. Chi is an interrogative pronoun. It stands in the place of the person's name. It's invariable, meaning it does not change form from masculine to feminine or singular, plural. You simply use chi for any who question. Some examples of questions with chi. Chi è quella ragazza? Who is that girl? Chi viene alla festa? Who's coming to the party? Chi ha il libro? who has the book? In the first question, key asks for the identity of a person, the girl. In the second, key asks which people will come to the party. Note that even if the answer could be multiple people, we still use key and the verb in the third person singular form. In all cases, key is at the start of the question. Second, che cosa or cosa. My God, my hand just cannot stop moving. What? Okay, che cosa means what, and it's used to ask about things, actions, or ideas. This interrogative can be said in a couple of ways. You can say the full form che cosa, or simply cosa, or even just che. They have the same meaning and usage. These forms are interchangeable, even if the form che by itself, meaning what, is more informal and it's often heard in casual speech or in certain regions. Like chi, che cosa or cosa is invariable, it doesn't change form, and use it to ask about objects, concepts, or actions, essentially anything that is not a person. Here are some examples. Che cos'è questo? What is this? Cosa studi? What do you study? Che cosa mangi? What are you eating? In the first example, che cosa is combined with e, is, the third person singular of the verb to be. Io sono, tu sei, lui, lei è. Note that we usually contract che cosa è to che cos'è with an apostrophe for ease of pronunciation. The question che cos'è questo asks for identification of an item. What is this? In the second, cosa is asking about an action, the thing you study. In the third, che cosa asks for the thing that you are eating. You could also ask just che fai to mean what are you doing, but remember che alone in this sense is informal. It's safer as a beginner to stick with che cosa or cosa if you want to say what. Let's go now to quale, which. This is used when you are choosing or specifying something out of a group or list. For example, if you want someone to pick or identify one item or person among several options, you use quale. This word can function as an interrogative adjective when directly followed by a noun. For example, quale libro, which book, or as an interrogative pronoun when it stands alone. For example, quale preferisci? Which one do you prefer? Quale changes form for plural. Its plural form is quali. Quali means which ones. However, it does not change for gender. Quale is used for both masculine and feminine, singular, and quali for both masculine and feminine, plural. So you only need to think about singular versus plural when you use quale. Quale or quali. Here are some examples. Quale libro preferisci? Which book do you prefer? Qual è il tuo colore preferito? Which is your favorite color? Quali lingue parli? Which languages do you speak? In the first example, quale comes directly before the noun. Quale libro, book, indicating that you are asking someone to pick or identify which book. Important. Quale is written as two words without an apostrophe. Again, quale is written qual and then e without apostrophe. Even though it sounds like one word, quale, let's not go too much into why this happens, but just remember that only in this specific case, qual è is written as two separate words without apostrophe. Qual is not an elision of quale in this expression. It's a truncated form called troncamento. Anyway, let's move on to the third example. The plural quali is used because we say lingue, languages, plural. We are asking someone to list which languages they speak. So use quale or quali anytime you would say which or which one or which ones in English. It implies that there is a limited set of options or a context. If someone has two books in hand, you might ask quale vuoi? Which one do you want? Quanto, how much, or how many? Quanto is a versatile interrogative word that changes ending to agree with the noun it's asking about. This means that you will choose one of four forms. Quanto for masculine singular, which means how much. Quanta for feminine singular, how much again. Quanti for masculine plural, how many. Quante for feminine plural, how many. Use quanto or quanta when asking about an uncountable amount. For example, mass nouns or a quantity in the singular. Use quanti or quante when asking how many of countable items, plural things. Essentially, quanto behaves like an interrogative adjective that must match the thing you are asking about in gender and number. It can also stand alone as a pronoun when the noun is understood from the context, especially common with quanto meaning how much. Some examples of questions with quanto. Quanto costa un caffè? How much does a coffee cost? Quanti anni hai? How many years do you have? Literally, which is how Italian asks, how old are you? Quante sorelle hai? How many sisters do you have? In the first example, quanto is masculine singular because it refers to the price, il prezzo, masculine, of un caffè. The phrase quanto costa, how much does it cost, is very useful for asking prices. In the second, quanti is masculine plural, agreeing with anni, years. Quanti anni hai is the common way to ask someone's age in Italian. Literally, how many years do you have? In the third example, quante is feminine plural to agree with sorelle, sisters. We are asking someone how many sisters they have. So remember, quanto changes to quanta, quanti, quante based on the noun. Again, quanto, masculine singular, quanti, masculine plural. Quanta, feminine singular, quante, feminine plural. Nota bene. When quanto or quale are used before is, io sono, tu sei, lui, lei, è, you will sometimes see them contracted in writing for smoothness. For example, you might see quante, short for quanto è, meaning how much is it? This is used when asking for a price, especially informally. And as mentioned, quale is written without an apostrophe. Quante has an apostrophe, quale does not have any apostrophe, even though it drops the e. These contractions help the question flow better. Now that we've covered the main interrogative words chi, che cosa, cosa, quale, and quanto, as well as yes-no questions, you should be able to form a variety of questions in Italian. Remember that interrogative words usually come at the start of the question, and for yes-no questions, you mainly rely on the intonation. Keep in mind the small changes for quale to quali, and quanto to quanta, quanti, quante to match what you're asking about. Now it's time to practice what we've learned. Fill in the blanks with the correct Italian question word. È quella donna? Who is that woman? 3, 2, 1. Chi è quella donna? Second one. Costa questo biglietto? How much does this ticket cost? 3, 2, 1. Quanto costa questo biglietto? Third one. Vuoi fare oggi? What do you want to do today? 3, 2, 1. Che cosa vuoi fare oggi? Or cosa vuoi fare oggi? Or even informally, che vuoi fare oggi? Next one. Colore preferisci? Which color do you prefer? 3, 2, 1. Quale colore preferisci? Last one. Studenti ci sono in classe? How many students are in the class? 3, 2, 1. Quanti studenti ci sono in classe? Ben fatto per oggi, ci vediamo nella prossima lezione.